and Papa T are finishing the very last bit of the driveway here where the parking spaces are. Come on, you want to ride? And I'm gonna wait just a second for him to get done with what he's doing because I need his help. I'm going to nail down some of the mapping of the garden belt, and Maya just brought the 100-foot measuring tape as well as these little surveying flags. We're gonna mark some stuff out so that I can plan appropriately with planting, getting a lot of stuff in order. I'm gonna tell you about it. Hey pigs! Hello geese! Oh, got some tasty watermelon rinds. Yum! Yo, I hope something in your day makes you as happy as this watermelon is making these pigs. You want to know an interesting little tidbit I learned from Hand Hewn Farms when they came and did the butchering class at our old farm? That the term eating high on the hog came because if you picture a pig standing, all the lower parts like the legs, the hocks, any of the underbelly parts, in the lower ends of the legs, that is what bears the most weight. Therefore it's more muscly and more sinewy, and those are the things that you are gonna do like long slow cooking to break down all of that sinew. The loins and such, the things that are up on the top of the pig, are just more naturally tender meat. The term came from is because like back in the old days, basically the people who were very wealthy and could afford the better cuts of meat, they ate higher on the hog, and the lower cuts of meat were the things that were used to like season beans and do stuff like that, real long slow cooking, barbecue, and that was eating lower on the hog, cheaper meat. I was looking at it and I was thinking, these pigs are eating high on the hog.
I was just noticing how Bear fully submerged himself in the pond and then is going to want to get back in old trusty, what are we calling her?
Mater.
Mater. Oh, him. Okay. Look at him.
Yeah, no.
He's going to jump in Mater and ride with us. He's got another
little
guy.
Sore disappointment coming.
Yeah.
Did you have a nice dip, baby dog? The willow's falling over again.
Yeah, I got a T-post in it. I think because we put such sandy soil, it's kind of like you can just see that it's got roots. It's not like rooted into clay, so it's having a hard time keeping itself stranded up. I remember opening a box and finding some rolls of your like flexible tomato tie.
Yeah.
I don't want to put something rigid because it'll damage the tree.
It's growing really fast, yeah.
So I'm going to find something flexible and get it to stand up. It is starting to weep and willow.
Is that what it's doing?
Is that why they call it that?
It's a weeping willow.
I'm just saying, like, look at the branches like
yeah, they're starting to weep. Yeah. Time to make some decisions.
I think we've done pretty good in decision making.
I feel pretty good about it. I mean, I hope that time, the test of time, will make me still feel good about it, but I mean, I feel good about our designing and layout.
Other option was do nothing.
Yeah, and we didn't do that. It is really an overwhelming thing, like having a raw piece of land and essentially cultivating it, laying out where things are going to be that you know you're going to be living with for a long time. It's definitely been a little intimidating, but sometimes you just have to make the decision. All right, so the driveway comes in here. We have the pig yard. First things first, we have to lay out where our 2 high tunnels are going to be. And Maya, I was out here this morning. I came out in the side-by-side pretty early this morning and was looking at this. And I think that we should leave enough space here and not start the first high tunnel until past the gate, so you can pull down in there. And that way if we need to back a truck up, and because we have those gates down on the end, we can access the high tunnels with the pigs like we had talked about. But I think the front of the high tunnel needs to be fairly close. We got to figure out how far back we want the fence to be all the way along, and then I think the front of the high tunnel should be right there, and we don't even need to start the fence until after the high tunnel.
Okay.
Do you think that's good? And leave this completely open so that it's accessible, so you just back up down there if you need to.
That's only an 8-foot gate, so I mean, I'm not going to be taking a truck through, but
a tractor
and the side-by-side
right.
and stuff like that.
Yeah. All right, we're now measuring out the first greenhouse, which they are what, 20, are they 26 or 28? 24? So they're 24 feet wide. And the faces of the high tunnel will be right here at the drive. Do you think that it's like, there's no chance like delivery truck drivers or anything are gonna hit these? Do you think we should set them back, or do you think it's okay?
I think it's fine. There's no chance of delivery truck drivers hitting them.
I feel like this is one of those moments that there may be like a flash forward in the future and
what? I'm sitting here being like, hey guys, remember that time I was right? That was 80 feet. Well, we're done building our house and no delivery truck drivers hit the greenhouses.
Okay. All right. So we're going to put 4 feet in between these greenhouses, which is not a really large space, but instead of having a big enough space that needs to be mowed, we're going to do a small enough space that you can access down the sides, but that we can lay down a weed barrier, like a really intense weed barrier fabric, and completely eliminate grass management between the two. Okay. Oh, there's another ant pile. Already stood an ant. Alright, so this needs to be at 52 feet. Alright, so we got the greenhouses flagged right here at the beginning. That gives us an idea of how much space that's actually going to take. Now the next thing that we need to flag is we need to figure out where we're going to build our glass greenhouse. I'm calling it a glass greenhouse. We're going to build another greenhouse out of windows. I don't know. We have not nailed down exactly what the plan on that is going to be yet. How much of it is going to be windows, how much of it might be corrugated plastic. It really probably depends on sourcing and if we can find windows that we want to use.
Right.
Laying this out. We might be crazy.
Oh, we are totally crazy. I've just embraced it.
It's so much space. Okay. I keep telling myself there's going to be trees and berries and all these things that are not annual gardens that require, you know, like annual taking in and taking out.
Sure,
it's just going to be...
What's really going to happen is all this is going to turn into tomatoes.
Okay, so we'll have the permanent structures of high tunnels down there. And I mean, I say permanent. Obviously, high tunnels can be taken down and moved. It's not like a house, but we're going to put them in and plan on keeping there for a long time. Now, this barn is not going to be here long term. This was a barn that existed here that we kind of just gave a quick revamp to have a structure for our animals while we moved. We are putting a big barn in through that gate in the pasture there. And I'm thinking that this would be a great area for the window greenhouse. And it's going to be a little bit bigger than our last one, correct?
I thought it was going to be pretty substantially bigger.
The only reason I don't want to go super substantially bigger is because, one, I don't really need it to be a whole lot bigger. In South Carolina, it's so hot during the year that
it's not going to be used.
It's not going to be used a lot of the time. And then also, as far as trapping and holding heat, you go a lot bigger on that and you actually lose the value of how much heat it will trap and hold.
So we did a 10 by 12 before. What are we thinking
I was thinking maybe, and I don't know with lumber dimensions and like just material dimensions, but I was thinking maybe we could go 12 foot wide and then maybe go like by 16.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I think that would probably be plenty sufficient to build what we want. And I was considering changing the shape.
Now
but I don't have to.
Well, I was just going to say, this was not necessarily a planned thing, but worked out really well. The shape of that one-sided higher than the other really vented a lot of that heat out the high side. I think just adding more vents along the roof, as long as we had those automatic vent, you know, with the wax that expands.
Well, I don't hate the shape that it was, and I actually think the shape that it was very simple to build. If we built that and we were facing that high side into this direction, we would actually be facing that south facing, which is not horrible. It's kind of different here. You know, if you live in a place that has a shorter season or is just a cooler place, you really have to take into consideration probably more where are shadows being cast, which direction am I facing, making sure you're not planting things in lower dips where cool air might pool. In a place that has such a long season like this, where it is so hot, we don't really have, there's a little more leeway for that. Like we can be like, well, this isn't exactly facing the right direction, but it'll still be fine. Ideally, you would want the slanted part south facing. But I don't know that it makes that big of a difference.
It didn't make a whole lot of difference in the one in Arkansas.
Right. Now, if you lived in a cooler place, you might need to take that into consideration. But
I kind of like the idea of going into just trying
a new design.
Traditionally pitched design.
Either way, I think if we flag off 12 by 16, we can plan accordingly. And if we wiggle room on that a little bit, that's fine. But I'm really just needing to know where to put in-ground gardens right now. So if you flag 12 by 16, I think that would be good. And we're gonna do that right in this area. So right now it's gonna look like we're building two buildings kind of close together, sort of in contradiction to one another. But we know that building's gonna be gone. The other thing is that our house, when we eventually build a house, is going to be right here in this opening. And I really like the idea of having my glass greenhouse, my seed starting greenhouse, right out from my house where I can come out, walk over here and care for these seedlings because they're going to need really constant care when they're in here. The other benefit is this is right in the middle of my garden belt. So if I need to take plants that way, I can take them that way. And if I need to take plants this way, I can take them this way. And it's really centrally located.
How far off the road?
So I want to consider that I want to do a path off the road. Probably something like flagstone. I don't necessarily want to do the same gravel, but we could.
Flagstone will work.
Flagstone. And I'm wanting this to be very picturesque, of course. This is going to be a lovely space.
I'm shocked. We're not going super industrial functional? Okay, we can do it pretty.
And I'm thinking I want it fairly far back, but I want it to be accessible on the back side too.
Honey, you've got 75 feet probably.
Yeah.
Positioning, you can literally put as much space on the front or back as you want.
Yeah, I want it more to the back, maybe like 20 feet off the fence, and then we'll put it here. And my idea is that in front of this glass greenhouse, all the way on the side, so last time I did the cottage garden around the glass greenhouse, this time I'm actually going to do rows of cut flowers all the way around it. So this is where I'll plant bulbs and stuff that'll come back year after year in rows on either side. So once we figure out the glass greenhouse, I'm gonna measure off the space for the cut flower garden, and then on the other sides of that is where I want to spread this compost and put my silage tarps down for things like onions and garlic that I'm going to be planting here in the next couple months, as well as some fall crops. Lower than this? Okay. All right. That's 20 feet.
Yeah, roughly.
Oh, hello, girls. Hello. Hey, lovely ladies.
Are you needing me to square everything up right now?
No, I really just need a general idea.
So,
and actually,
16 this way or 12 this way, 16 this way?
Let's come this way with it, just because right now it'll be less space to move those. And I think this is actually going to be more in line with the house where I want it. 16 long way and then 12 deep. Yeah? So my idea here with the garden belt is that when you drive into this property, you're going to come down this driveway real slow and be able to just pass by all of these growing efforts. And I'm imagining all kinds of growing efforts where we'll have in-ground spaces and cut flower garden, raised beds, kind of some dwarf fruit trees, rows of berries of all different sorts, perennial things. I was originally going to put my rhubarb and artichokes and asparagus over in front of our home back in the corner, and I decided not to. This is so much space that really, although I like the idea of having these neat spaces all over, the most responsible thing to do, especially with things I'm trying to get in right now, is to put them all up here, because then we're only having to run irrigation to these areas, and putting them over there might be cool, but that's another area that we'd have to edge trim around and weed eat around, which makes more work, as well as that much more space to run irrigation, which costs more money. And it's not like we're lacking any space right here. So yeah, that window greenhouse right there would be really perfect. We can do a pathway down it, and guys, I'm just imagining these rows of cut flowers that go all along this, all the way down to the fence on either side. So this whole section here will be our cut flower section. And then on either side of this, we're going to do some in-ground, which is where we're going to spread this topsoil out and silage tarp it soon.
Now?
Now would be great. Now, do you want to flag out the driveway over here? What's the plan on this? As far as like graveling that, scraping it, what do you want to do for laying that driveway out? Are you going to wait till the barn is up and then do the whole thing to the barn?
I think that's probably what I was thinking about doing, just so I make sure we line it up properly.
Yeah.
And that way it's if I scrape it now and it starts raining, it's going to be a muddy mess.
Right.
And so I probably will not scrape it and drop it until we get the barn, because I want to go gravel
all the way,
because it's a 12-foot wide drive through. It's a 12-foot gate. We're going to line it up so you can literally go through that drive, go straight through the barn, and then we're going to put another drive in, eventually going all the way back to that corner entrance, which is where like I'll bring in like bulk feed and stuff like that.
So the barn is going up late this fall, and you're going to scrape this driveway in, but that other drive that's going up to the other route, that's not
I'm just thinking
term.
ahead. That's like
right. That's much longer before we do another big gravel driveway.
And also, like, this was more gravel than I was anticipating, and which is why we didn't do any of the other extra like stuff. So
yeah, it's hard when you're building stuff like this, because if you really want to make the most out of your money and the decisions that you're making, you really need to think ahead, but you also need to maintain the capacity to break things down in bite-sized chunks. Like, for instance, this gravel was more, and we did what was the most important that we were going to have to drive in, because it's going to get really wet in a couple of months and we don't need people getting stuck in our yard. So we needed this driveway, but we don't need that driveway yet. So that got bumped down until later. And it just breaks the budget up to be able to do stuff in steps. Anytime you're building something like this, you really need a 5-year plan, and then you need to be willing to just break it down into chunks. And what are we doing in the next 6 months? And kind of just do bite-sized pieces that you can wrap your budget around. But have a 5-year plan. Even if you don't see how you're going to afford the 5-year plan, it's good to have it, because then you know what you're working towards. And if you don't have that long-term vision, you'll end up wasting money in the long run.
Was there anything else you needed me to help you lay out before we start spreading out this dirt and putting the tarps up?
I actually have some other things that I know we need to lay out, like the driveway, because I want to plant those crepe myrtles on the sides of that drive that goes to the barn. We're going to be working on those swales and stuff. There are other things that we're going to need to do, but really the only things I was wanting to like mark out was the glass greenhouse and the high tunnels, because that's what we're building this winter. And so I just didn't want to be planting stuff and it be in your way. I wanted those marked where we actually wanted them.
Anything that we plant and what we're about to prep, we'll be pulling out to prep
Right,
again.
yeah, like these are going to be in-ground spaces, so any soil building or anything we do right now, it'll be usable. Even if we end up moving, like, oh, I'm not going to plant garlic and onions there, I'm going to move it down, like, it'll still be where we want. So we can just flatten those out, leave an ample space around this greenhouse so that you can build it without having to tiptoe around anything.
Okay. And then we'll lay the tarps out.
Yep. So I really want to point out a couple of things for teaching purposes that we're bearing in mind as we make decisions right now. You'll notice I'm planning in-ground garden spaces right now that will last a season. So the things I'm gonna plant garlic here in a couple of months. I'm gonna plant onions over the winter. And all of the things that I'm planting now will be fully harvested by like the very beginning of summer. And because of that, this is not a long-term commitment that I'm making. Now, we won't break ground on building any raised beds or anything like that until these structures are underway, until we've really got more of a firm idea of what we want to do. Now, I am getting ready to order some fruit trees and berry bushes and stuff, and when those come in, again, we're going to have to start bearing in mind all these long-term decisions and making plans for things that we're hoping to have a really long-term life. Like when I put my asparagus patch in, I don't want that thing to move ever. I mean, ideally I would like to be harvesting that asparagus 30 years from now in the exact same place that I plant it this year or in spring, depending on whenever the crowns come in. For this, like, the fact that I'm like, man, I would really love to spread this soil out and grow some food right now so that we have a little more sustainability over this winter and so that I have a garden to work in. That's why I'm going with the in-ground garden and the silage tarps, because it's just a short-term commitment. And like I told Jeremiah, I really just wanted to come out here and lay down and mark out where these structures are going to go, the high tunnels and the greenhouse, because I know we're going to be working on those over the course of the next handful of months. And I just don't want to plant something now in haste that we're going to regret planting 4 months from now whenever we're trying to build this stuff. All right, it's later in the day. We've actually been out here spreading this. I just went and grabbed my camera because we were about to lay the tarp out and I wanted to show it to you guys. Oh, I wish this lens zoomed more. You know, look at the beautiful, oh, you can't see it that far off. There's a mated pair of blue herons that live out here and they're so majestic and they just fly over the property. So we got the topsoil laid out here, flattened it. Rough estimate, Maya laid it out on one end so we would know how long the space is and then just brought it down here. These tarps are 40 by 50 and where we are putting these, it's definitely just gonna be, like, these are gonna be in-ground spaces this season, but they may have some beds built on them or kind of perennial areas established there in the future. But right now, the point of just doing this is to just get something started. So we're about to lay these tarps over this big patch of soil. Huh?
There are some nutrients in this soil.
Yeah. Smells right. This is cool!
I guess that's pretty good. Meh, a little too long. Close enough. What?
I mean, I'm like a little over the soil line here. How much over? Are you over the soil line there?
No, I stopped it here, but it's not even. I didn't know how to make it perfectly even.
Okay. Well, do you want to pull it back?
Let's go back that way.
That is 2,000 square feet of growing space, which is pretty cool.
That 2,000 square feet of growing space on this property is like, doesn't feel like a lot.
Yeah, no, it's not massive. I mean, it's massive, it just doesn't look massive. So we're gonna do the same thing over here with those two piles of soil, lay it out. Now, eventually, some of this space will be encroached by the cut flowers. Eventually, on this side, some of the space will be encroached by the driveway, by some raised beds, because I'm going to do some really pretty stuff around here. But as for right now, I'm going to be growing stuff that can be harvested sooner. So that's pretty cool, Maya. I feel legit right now.
Yeah, we just need to get sandbags on it.
Yeah. These silage tarps will get holes in them over time. So you want to kind of treat them as well as possible to make them last as many seasons as possible. And you can use things like boards and stuff to hold them down, but the sandbags are good because they're not going to poke holes in them. So we're actually going to do this again. I'm going to go ahead and put my camera up so we can just knock this out. These will have to be down for 3 weeks because it's still pretty hot. Hopefully 3 weeks will do it. The weather has broken some, so it's not as hot every day. We were having temperatures above 90 Fahrenheit, 32 Celsius every day, and now we don't have a single one that's going to break that over the next 10-day forecast. So it would have been better to put these down a couple weeks ago and make the most of those hot temperatures as far as these silage tarps killing everything off underneath them. But it's okay. Hopefully in 3 weeks we'll be able to move them back and start planting some stuff in this space. So thank you guys for hanging out with us today. God bless you. Until next time.